This is part two of processing the drill core that we gathered in part one of the tutorial video. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to that folder where we stored all of our imagery, which in this case is called sediment core, and we're going to open up that folder. So as you can see, all of those images are here. We took them in intervals. They all went to one folder. So now what we need to do is go through and create several folders that we can break each of these files up. So what I'm going to do is I have this active 2D template folder. So what I can do is just grab this from a rotation, and I just have these empty folders that are preset that are in numerical order from 0 through 360. I'm just going to take 0 through 100, copy them over here, and then I'm going to open up a second window from the desktop that's the sediment drill core that's here. And now what I want to do is I just want to grab that final folder where all the images went, and I want to find the break. So if you see right here, that's where, if you look over here, we've got, basically that's the left-hand side of the core sample, but if I scroll one image down, it had panned over. So this is the selection of images that we want from the stack. So we took a total of 40 images, but it always captures one extra image, so you'll notice I'm grabbing 41 and not 40. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move that to the 0 folder, and then make sure I've got my 5, which is the next empty one, and then I'm going to find the next break, which is right here. That's my next 41 photos. Drag that to 5. Likewise, find the next break, drag that to 10, and so forth. You're just going to keep doing this until you've broken up all of your images into clusters of individual unfocused stacked photographs. Just want to make sure I find my place. It looks like I put that one in 25. That should go into 20. Yep, there we go. This one should go into 25. I'm just going to go ahead and continue to move these folders, and I'll speed this up so that I don't waste your time. Okay, so we're just about finishing this up. This one's going to go into folder 85, and then this one's going to go into 90. There we go. So we don't need any of these folders, and this folder is now empty, so we can delete this. So now our images are broken up into packets at varying focal planes, but at individual frames. So what we want to do is we want to stitch these photos together in a way that's not very demanding. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our software, Zerine Stacker, and we're going to batch process all of these photographs. So with that, what we're going to do is we've got our dialog box here. We're going to let that load and open up. We're going to go to Batch, Show Batch Dialog, and now we want to add all of our projects. So in this case, we're going to go to our desktop. We're going to find that folder. What did I call that folder? That was called Sediment Core CMR1. So we'll add that. Actually, we actually want to open that up. So Sediment Core CMR1. We want to highlight all of the images where the photos are stored and click Add. So now they're all there. We want to highlight all of these, and then we want to, under Stacking Tasks, go to the Add. And now we want to assign our task, which is we want to stack each of these packets or each of these folders of photographs, and we want to use the Pmax function. You're going to hit Pmax, and you also want to align all frames, so it's good to check align as well. Press OK. And now you want to create a final folder where all of your output photographs are going to be directed to go. So you want to choose that folder. In this case, you want to store it in the same spot, so Desktop, Sediment Core, and then you're just going to create a new folder here. It doesn't look like I can add it from there, so I'll just go here, add a new folder, call this one Final Output Images. Press Enter. Now I'll find that folder, Final Output Images, hit Select, and it doesn't look like I need to apply any of the tasks, so everything should be good to go. And now what I need to press is Save Batch. So now my batch is processed up here, and I'm going to run all of these batches just by pushing this button. And now what it's going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to drag each of those images in each of those source folders, and it's going to stitch all of these images together. Remember, left window is the image that is processing, right window is the image that we're basically forming a composite of. So if I click 100% here to look at this photo, and I scroll up to an area of this core sample that's already in focus, you'll now see the next layer start to process. It's going to start to overlay the subjects of this core sample that are most in focus, so that way our resulting photograph is going to be one image that's entirely in focus, which we're going to use to create our panoramic later on. So this step, we took about 11 images across the core. This step's going to take a little bit of time. It's one of those things that you can just sort of set it, walk away from, and then if you have another core to image, then move over to the equipment and start imaging another core, and then let those run automatically while you go off and do something else. So when this is done, we'll come back, and then we'll meet again, and then we'll walk you through the actual photo merge process. Alright, so all of the images have finished stitching together. So they've been stored in the folder that we created earlier, which is called Final Output Images, and now from left side of the core all the way to the right, you can see those files stored here. So one thing that's good to do is to go through and check and make sure that the order is correct, because sometimes they process in a different order. You just want to make sure that where the 50 is here, as I scroll down, that 50 is just going down to the left. So you can see here it is. But here's one that's out of place. You can see that this is a section of the core that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15, 16. So this image belongs in the number 2 slot. So it's good to go through and then just make sure that these things are assigned in order. So we're just going to call this 1, that one down here 2, and then all the rest of these I've already checked are in order. So I'm just going to go through and make sure that the numbers are aligned and consistent with the numbers I had already changed. So we're just going to basically put all of these photographs in order. And it seems like it's kind of an unnecessary step, which in some cases it is. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it is a time saver in terms of the things that can go wrong later down the process. So it's good to go through and make sure that all of these photographs are indeed in order. Okay, so just about done. Now we're at the top of the core. And then the other thing you can do is you can open an image just to inspect that the software did its job. You can see the entire core sample is completely in focus. The quality and the resolution is fantastic. You can make out individual clasps, and we didn't even use a lens that basically magnifies. This is a one-to-one photograph. So there's no magnification here, but that's our quality of the core. But now what we want to do is visualize those grains in the context of the entire core sample. So to do that, we would use Adobe Photoshop and through an intermediate program called Adobe Bridge. So I'm going to open up Adobe Bridge. So now in Adobe Bridge, you navigate to where your folder is. So this folder, the final output where I stored those images, was on my desktop. You can see just by looking at the images here that all of the photographs are in order just by looking at the gradient of the core itself. And now what we want to do is move along and we want to stitch all of these photographs together. Now I could grab all these and just do a photo merge and a photo stitch, but that's a lot of information for a computer to process. And again, there's something that could go wrong that would make everything a little bit longer than if you did this in steps. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to grab it in clusters of 5. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're going to stitch these together. So we'll go to Tools, Photoshop, Photo Merge. You want to click Reposition, that way none of the images are becoming warped and all of the scales stay true to when we initially capture the photograph. You want to make sure Blend Images Together is checked and you press OK. Now what's going to happen is all those images are going to be pulled into Photoshop. It's going to analyze areas of overlap and it's going to stitch them together and then blend them together. And had I selected every single photograph on that core sample, this process could theoretically take a very long time just because it has to pull it all together. But because I grabbed this in only a cluster of 5, it's processing about 100 megapixels, or 100 megabytes rather, fairly quickly. And by doing it this way, we could actually end up finishing this photo merge, this stitch, at a faster rate than if we just grabbed them and pieced them all together. So this is just about done. Here it is. So there's our core sample, and it's completely in context. The other thing you can do is you can go down the ruler and make sure that the numbers are in sequence, and that just lets us know if we had any stitching errors. And basically it appears that we had a very good stitch here. So the next thing we want to do is we want to file, save this image into a secondary folder. So we'll go to desktop, go back to the sedimentary core image, go back to file output images, and then we'll just call this one phase 2, and we'll save this panoramic as A, and you want to save it as a PSD file. That way any of the background information is still transparent. It makes stitching easier later on. So we're going to save that as a PSD file and click Save. And then we're just going to repeat the process for the next 5. So we'll just grab 6 through 10, Tools, Photoshop, and Photo Merge, and we're going to click Reposition and let that go through and process again. And now you kind of have the hang of what I'm doing, so I'm going to pause here and speed up the video, and then we'll reconvene the moment that I'm done with this step. Okay, so this is the last packet of images stitched together, so we're just going to close that one out. It's been saved, and all of those photographs are in phase 2. Now likewise, what you can do is you can grab all 4 and just photo merge these together, or again you can do it in clusters, just 2 and 2, just in case, because now the images are getting quite large. But I think with only 4 we'll be okay. We'll just give it a shot. So we're going to select those 4, go to Tools, Photoshop, and Photo Merge. And this is going to be a little bit longer than the stitches we did earlier, just because these images are significantly larger. So we're going to let that go through and process. And it's now finished. So the entire core sample, it worked with grabbing those 4, is now completely in context. It's stitched together, and you can see everything in order. And there's your resolution as we zoom in. So on a Mac, it's Command + sign to zoom in. You can see that there's some areas on top of the core where it's a transparent file, and below the core that's a transparent file. So what I'm going to be doing in the next tutorial video is talking about how to refine this final photograph, and I'll also discuss some post-processing techniques that allow you to better analyze the core samples that you just photographed. Things like color inversion. So if I were to just color invert the pictures on my screen here, you can see how certain details catch the eye better than if they're standard colors that we're used to seeing. We can also do some channel mixes and things like that, where we make things that are a subtle brown to a darker brown appear as bright red or bright green. So we have basically a really nice phase contrast. It just makes analyzing the core samples that much more effective. So from this point on, you now have seen the entire walkthrough from capturing images of the drill core all the way through to producing a final result. I believe the videos in full, even with the tutorial, took about a half an hour, excluding processing time. And for you, the only human involvement that you'll actually have is going to require only about 6 minutes of setup and 6 minutes of processing the data when you're done. So there's very little human effort here. Most of this is driven by the computers. And I hope that this information was effective. I will be releasing new tutorial videos to basically discuss future techniques, other methods, basically things that are just going to be very helpful for you with having this equipment. So now what I'm going to do is just call this tutorial over. I'm going to save this one again as a large document format. That's a PSD file. We'll save that again in phase 2, and we'll just call this final, or you can even call it the specimen name, but in this case we'll just call it final image, PSB, and save. And that's it. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this tutorial, and I look forward to joining you next time.